Welcome to the 2017 Team Eglin Hurricane Preparedness Briefings. Today we will be discussing hurricane dangers and how to prepare for them. We'll begin by defining how we classify hurricanes, both on the civilian and military side. HURCON is the military's answer to posturing for hurricanes, comparable to FBCON for force protection. HURCON 5 states that destructive winds are possible within 96 hours, on a descending scale to HURCON 1 with destructive winds anticipated within 12 hours. Destructive winds are classified as sustained greater than 50 knots or gusts greater than 60 knots. A significant change to note from last year. HURCON 5 will only be in effect when destructive winds are anticipated within 96 hours. Last year, HURCON 5 was implemented throughout the entire hurricane season. Another key note. Pending where the tropical cyclone develops, we may not be given the opportunity to start with HURCON 5 and descend down the scale. If the storm develops over the Gulf of Mexico, we could begin with HURCON 3. The next slide will dive into the Saffir-Simpson scale. This is the scale most are familiar with. It defines when a tropical cyclone is categorized as a depression, storm, and finally a hurricane. The National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center will reference this scale in their products. It is designed to classify the strength of the tropical cyclone. There are also a few key changes to this scale from last year as well. Categories of the storm no longer have a correlating storm surge. In the past, a Category 3 storm has a particular storm surge associated with it. Beginning with this year, specific forecasts will be developed for storm surge. We have examples throughout the next slides for reference in the destruction produced by differing levels of storms, but as a final footstop, HURCON equals timing and categories equal strength. Moving on to historical data. Hurricane season runs from 1 June to 30 November, with the peak of the season being August through October, but that does not rule out storms in the early or late season. The next slide highlights the impacts of early storms as well. Continuation of historical data. This slide highlights the formation areas with red circles and storms passing within 120 nautical miles of Eglin with the chart on the right. June and July highlighting the possibility for storms to impact the area in the early portion of the season, with formation over the Gulf of Mexico and western Atlantic. The chart on the right supports this with 6 storms being recorded in July. Threats to safety. Storm surge and rainfall-induced flooding are our biggest threats to safety, being accountable for 75% of the deaths. Here is a key distinction between storm surge and flooding from rainfall. Storm surge is an increase in the mean water level, not the wave height. You'll see on the pie chart that surf only accounts for 5% of the deaths. A 3-foot storm surge is a 3-foot rise in the total sea level, similar to a pool being 12 feet deep over 9 feet deep. This allows the water to reach areas that were previously protected by natural shorelines and retaining walls. Tornadoes on the outer bands also have a significant impact, accounting for 5% of the deaths. Hurricanes and tropical storms can disrupt our everyday lives, especially basic services like electrical power and our food supply. To get prepared for the upcoming hurricane season, we recommend you follow these 3 steps. First, get a kit. Assemble a collection of first aid supplies, food, water, medicines, and important papers that can sustain you and your family until the emergency passes. Your kit should have enough food and water to sustain each person for a minimum of 3 days. This includes at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. And don't forget about pets. Next, make a plan. Decide where you'll go during a hurricane evacuation. Research hotels, talk with family and friends to establish a plan of travel at least 100 miles away from the hurricane's path. If you're assigned to a hurricane rideout team, ensure your dependents have a plan to sustain without you. Document this plan and share it with your supervisor. Finally, be prepared. During the entire hurricane season, 1 June through 30 November, keep your vehicles fueled with no less than a half a tank of gas. Ensure you keep cash to pay for gasoline and supplies during evacuation, as power may be down and debit and credit cards machines may not function. Also, many basic homeowners and renters insurance policies do not include flood insurance. Review your policies and be aware it could take up to 30 days for new flood insurance policies to take effect. Because a hurricane can progress quickly, it's critical to follow the directions of your unit and accomplish these actions during HURCON 5 and 4. Monitor local weather and secure all outdoor items. Consider filling up tubs and sinks to have potable water. If you live off base, we suggest boarding up your windows and all other preparedness measures required by your insurance policy. If you live on base, do not board up your windows. The housing office is responsible for structural hurricane preparedness action. Finally, at work, follow the directions of your unit control center and ensure you secure all sensitive items and dispose of perishable food items from break rooms and fridges. Not all hurricanes will drive evacuations. However, should we evacuate, there are three types of evacuations: voluntary, recommended, and mandatory. Your unit commanders will notify you when you are eligible and required to depart. We highly recommend you take advantage of both voluntary and recommended evacuation offered by your unit commanders. The intent is to get you out of the area before Okaloosa County orders their evacuation. When they do, you can expect traffic delays up to 22 hours, so please leave as early as possible. For a mandatory evacuation, the 96th Test Wing Commander will make the final determination on the minimum evacuation distance. Military members are required to evacuate in accordance with this order. All others, including military dependents, are highly encouraged to evacuate as well. Your leadership will contact you when it's time to return. Until then, keep in close contact with your supervisor, monitor Team Eglin's Facebook page and AFPAS for the most current recall information. Do not return until directed to do so by your leadership. In the days after the storm, we expect to have flooding, roadway, and facility damage. During your evacuation planning, research local shelters that can meet your family's unique needs if you are unable to return to your home. Here's a list of all the Okaloosa County shelters that may be available after the hurricane, pending their own flood and storm damage.